That was a nice bio, but what I'd like to have everybody remember is I'm simply Don and Louise Lennon's boy from New Berlin, and I still call New Berlin home. I love the Unadilla Valley. It is home. After serving all over the world, it's an honor for Elaine and me to be here on this very sacred and celebratory day. I want to thank by thanking the UV Storm Chorus for a very powerful rendition of our national anthem. You know, I used to ask my soldiers a simple question, the type of question that you get from your English teacher in high school. What type of punctuation mark is at the end of the national anthem? Anybody know? The land of the free and the home of the brave? It's a question mark. It's not an exclamation mark, it's a question mark. You see, during the War of 1812, when Francis Scott Key wrote those words to the national anthem, he was on board a ship looking across the Baltimore Harbor at Fort McHenry, where the Americans had been shelled and rocketed by the British all through the night. At dawn's early light, he truly didn't know. He didn't know whether the Americans had withstood that barrage. He didn't know whether that flag was still flying. He didn't know if the American ideal had survived. Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you that no matter what your politics are, as long as we have proud patriots like we have here today, that flag will fly over the America we love for a long, long time. You know, and I was watching, and I didn't see anybody out here or anybody inside kneeling during that national anthem. You know, even though that topic seems to be away from the media and the press, it seems to have died down a little bit, I want to share a couple thoughts, if I could, on that topic. Peaceful protest and freedom of speech. Now, I understand and I appreciate that the First Amendment to our Constitution guarantees that all Americans have that right. For nearly 240 years, our servicemen and women have supported and defended that Constitution and that right. Thousands have died protecting it. Remember, that's the same First Amendment that allows us the right of assembly, allows us to gather every Memorial Day. Yes, Americans have the right to peacefully protest. But personally, what I'd like to see is when some athletic superstar or celebrity decides that they want to take a knee, that they also place their hand over their heart, showing that they personally are committed, just the same as our soldiers, our men and women were committed, that they appreciate the wonder and the potential of America. By doing that, they would be putting their own personal egos aside, at least for a few moments, and pledging for everyone to see that in their own way, they are committed to helping to make and keep the America that belongs to all her legal residents, even more full of liberty, justice, and opportunity. Now we'll see if any of those celebrities choose to take a knee and put a hand over their heart. You know, another thought about the flag. For nearly 250 years, that flag has served as a rallying point, a rallying point for our service members on the battlefield. It's brought all Americans together in times of great pride and in times of strife and uncertainty. Think about the number of flags you saw flying that week after September 11th. But that beautiful piece of cloth is only a symbol. It's not who we are. Who we are as Americans is pretty simple. We, you and I, are more than residents of America. As citizens, we are the essence of America. The greatest, the most just social experience in the history of mankind. Now, as Alex de Tocqueville said 200 years ago when he came to America from Europe, America is great because America is good. Everywhere I go, I hear folks from other countries telling us of stories of the uninhibited human goodness of America. Now, personally, I think it's time for some of our Americans to share a little bit more of that human goodness with each other. Now, yes, we as a country have a ways to go. We're not perfect yet, but we can and we will only get better if we do it together. I love a quote that I recently read in an essay by a high school senior at Unadilla Valley. She may be here today. She simply wrote, "The left wing and the right wing are all part of the same bird." She says she heard that from her grandfather. Well, to me, her grandfather's a pretty smart man. And he was smart enough to pass that little tidbit of wisdom on to the next generation. Now, when we service members raise our right hand, we embarked on an amazing and noble mission, pledging ourselves and our very souls and lives in support of and defense of not a person, not a political party, but the America that I've been talking about, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Defending not just our guaranteed freedoms, but our way of life. In taking that oath, our service members became part of something bigger than themselves. They became part of a new family, the military family. Now that word family is pretty important here, because the military truly is a family, and it's a force made up of human beings. For our America, which just happens to have the latest technology in the world and the best equipment in the world, is something great. But the success of our military operations, whether they're in the mountains of Afghanistan or in some blacked out village in Puerto Rico after a devastating hurricane, are dependent on the power, the ingenuity, and the bravery of those human beings. As service members, that human element and that sense of being a part of a family are ingrained in our DNA. It's also what causes service members to take that next step on behalf of their teammates. Today, we honor those whose next steps proved fatal, tragically cutting short promising young lives. Now, when a service member dies, they're not alone. Their military family grieves. And as you can see, the military family pays proper tribute. Their military family doesn't forget. Today, we members of the military, both past and present, ask the South of Berlin and all of America, don't forget either. Our debt to them can never be repaid, and no parade, no rifle salute can ever bring them back. The best we can do is reflect, mourn our fallen heroes, and thank and care for their families. Now, there's a couple other things that I'd ask you to think about taking. First, learn some military history. Talk with and talk to a vet. Learn a little bit more about the men and women who have served our nation, who they were, what they did. I think you'll come away with a new respect for the word hero. It's overplayed these days. These men were heroes. And don't be afraid to say thank you to them. Some of them probably have not been thanked properly. I ask that you think about and pray for the heroes of today. Young men and women who are still serving, still honoring that oath and that commitment, still defending our country and our way of life. Take it from me, those serving today are still pretty amazing folks. We have hundreds of thousands of military service members serving in over 140 countries around the globe, many in harm's way every day. Every week, I have the sad routine of looking at the faces of the lost. Think of them when you raise your flag in the morning. Think of them when you take it down at night. Their day and their risk does not end with the sunset. Think of them when you bring your flag in at night during a storm, because they're still out in it for our sake. Now, the second thing I ask you to do is strive each day to live those core values that we in the military have ingrained in our DNA. Values like loyalty, devotion to duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity. Like that young girl's grandfather, instill those values in your children and grandchildren. Demand them from your peers and your leaders. Now, in closing, I'd ask that you look at, reflect on, and celebrate Memorial Day through a slightly different lens than you may have looked at it in the past. Now, if you could somehow go back, be a time traveler, and go back and interview one of our fallen heroes, they'd probably tell you that they weren't thinking lofty thoughts about our flag, our Constitution and its amendments, or even the American way of life. No, and they definitely were not thinking about some talking head on Fox News or MSNBC who has never experienced that situation. In the hours and the minutes before these service members, these heroes, lost their lives, they were probably just thinking about life back home, about their loved ones, and the next time that they too would be able to join in on an all-American Memorial Day picnic, barbecue, or camping trip. Now, in their final few seconds before their earthly lives came to an end, our heroes were simply thinking about survival, their own and that of their teammates, their military family. The next thing they did, they took action. So on this Memorial Day, I'd ask you to take a moment to do two things. One, honor those thoughts, honor their thoughts by celebrating our country in the way that they wish that they still could. Enjoy some of those traditions of Memorial Day. But of course, and more importantly, honor their actions. Actions taken by human beings from places like South Berlin, New York. For it was those human actions that have guaranteed our ability to celebrate America, to live as free Americans, to enjoy parades, to listen to the Star-Spangled Banner, to have a Memorial Day picnic, just like these service members, these heroes remembered. May God bless these heroes. May God hold them close today and every day. May God watch over our heroes of today. And may God continue to bless our amazing United States of America. Thank you very much.